In this video, we are going to discuss about optimal policies and optimal value function. So what is an optimal policy? So after so many rounds of reinforcement learning, an agent will come to know what is an optimal policy, right? So what is an optimal policy? Optimal policy is nothing but an agent. There is an agent, okay? And it tries policy 1, policy 2, policy 3, all right? So policy 3. And whichever policy gives the greater reward. Okay, so a policy should give a greater reward than other policy, then that is said to be an optimal policy. So if we see a definition, a policy is optimal, right? When do you call a policy optimal? If its expected return is greater than all other policies, right? So this is where you call a policy as an optimal policy. The expected reward should be greater than all the other policies that it has tried. Okay. And a policy whose state value function is greater than other policy is called a optimal policy, and the state value function is called an optimal state value function. For example, you take a P1 has tried a state value function of B pi of S. Okay, it has tried a state value function B pi of S, and I can say this is to P1. Okay, similarly, let's say policy 2 has obtained a state value function of P2 of V pi of S, right? So now among this, okay, so this is state value function for policy 1 and this is state value function for policy 2. So among these two, which is having a greater reward, okay, so among these two, which is having a greater reward, all right, in that case, you call it an optimal state value function. So optimal state value function is nothing but okay. So the state value function that you that we receive through an optimal policy is called the optimal state value function. So I can say in terms of definition, what is an optimal state value function? Right? What is an optimal state value function? The state value function of optimal policy is called an optimal state value function. Now let's see what is an expression for optimal state value function and optimal action value function. Now let us see what is an expression for the optimal state value function. So expression for the optimal state value function is, it says that optimal state value function the optimal state value function is denoted by V star of S is equal to max of policy pi, V pi of S for all small s belong to capital S. Similarly, the optimal action value function is given by Q star of S comma A is equal to max pi of Q pi of S comma A. So for all small s belong to capital S and small a belong to action for that state S.